Welcome back to Unusually Effective. Today we're talking about small skills that build a big life, and why some lives feel anchored and light at the same time, and why it isn't luck. We're told balance belongs to the fortunate. Some people get the timing right, the job right, the family right. The rest of us, we assume, are left to improvise. But it isn't fortune that steadies a life. It's a handful of small fundamentals. They are rarely glamorous, never headline worthy, yet they decide almost everything. Together, let's walk through why fundamentals matter, recall a few personal moments where I stumbled without them, and then look at three quiet skills: nourishment, intentional work, and relational investment that keep showing up in every life that feels whole. Picture a kitchen, not the kind with marble counters and glossy photos like in magazines. Just a regular kitchen, the soft hum of a fridge, a stack of dishes leaning in the sink, a half-open takeout box waiting to be tossed. For a long time, that was my rhythm. Quick bites from paper bags, more receipts than recipes, and a body that never quite felt rested. Now, picture another kitchen, one I stepped into years ago while working near a wealthy family. Here, the air felt different. Dinner wasn't a scramble, it was a ritual. The table was set with care. Conversation threaded the room, and the meal itself became a kind of an anchor. Two kitchens, one chaotic, one calm. And the difference was not the size of the house or the cost of the ingredients. It was the rhythm. It was the fundamentals. As I recall, there was a stretch when I lived mostly on takeout. At first, it felt like true freedom. More time, less mess. But slowly, life began to fray. My body tired easily. My wallet felt thin. My confidence in myself drifted lower. Then, one winter, almost on a dare to myself, I began cooking. Eggs at first, then pasta, then soups that carried warmth through the week. The shift was astonishing. Money stayed in my account. Sleep deepened. My body felt like it belonged to me again. What looked like a simple skill was in fact a hinge, swinging open doors to energy, confidence, and quiet pride. I used to imagine that passion alone would carry me. If I just cared enough, worked late enough, the results would follow. Instead, I felt burnout coming up. The turning point came with one decision: 90 minutes each morning given to what mattered most for the day. No phone, no distractions, no social media. Just a single task I could point to at the end of the day and say, I did this. Suddenly, work stopped being endless noise. It became actual contribution. It began to feel like dignity. When I was younger, friendships kind of happened to me, like for most people, in school or university. But then after I graduated, for years I thought friendships simply lived or died on chemistry. You meet, you click, and life either keeps you together or it doesn't. But life left on autopilot, it drifts, and I watched my own circles grow thin. So I began calling, just one friend each week, sometimes awkward, sometimes brief, but slowly bonds that had frayed began to hold again. And when storms came, those voices on the line steadied me in ways no achievement or paycheck ever could. Food touches our days like the rising sun, quietly and yet insistently. Ignore it and the shadows stretch long across our health and energy. Tend to it, even with modest skill, and it becomes a foundation. Even in wealthy households where chefs prepare meals, food is treated as more than just fuel. Meals become a kind of ritual, an axis around which family life turns. Not luxury, structure. I remember the very first evening I roasted vegetables. Nothing elaborate, just olive oil, salt, pepper, heat. But when I sat down with that plate, there was a flicker of pride. I had made this. 10 meals later, the kitchen was no longer foreign. I knew what the stove could do, how long garlic needs before it burns, the simple patience of stirring a pot. And with that came something deeper, a sense of agency. Cooking is never about just food. It is about self-efficacy, the quiet knowledge that you can influence the shape of your days. From that one skill, a cascade begins: better sleep, sharper mind, Steadier finances, lighter mood. Loops that feed into each other until life feels different, not in months or years, but sometimes just within a few weeks. So much of our life these days is consumed by noise. Emails, meeting, errands, notifications. We mistake busyness for meaning, but real contribution, work that satisfies, work that rewards, arrives only when focus is honored. The wealthy families I observed seem to understand this intuitively. Their children practiced instruments with quiet intention. Even leisure was very deliberate. It wasn't about control and scheduling everything to the microsecond. It was about clarity. For me, it began one morning when I placed my phone in another room, closed the browser, and set a simple timer, 90 minutes. The first day felt excruciatingly long. But by the third, I had finished the report I'd been avoiding for weeks. By the 10th, I was ahead in my projects for the first time in months. What surprised me most was not the output. It was the relief to know I had already given my best energy to something meaningful for the day. To carry that calm into the rest of my afternoon was liberating. This is not about being hyper-productive. It is about dignity. To look at the day and see something you've built, something that matters, however small. That sense of contribution lifts the whole frame of life. It ripples into confidence, finances, even how we show up in our friendships and relationships. When push comes to shove, we're all held together by threads of connection. Yet, how often do we assume those threads will stay strong without tending? Wealthy families, I noticed, rarely left relationships to chance. Rituals were guarded, dinners, holidays, simple traditions that said, "You matter, we belong here together." I began with one simple promise. Call a friend once a week. Actually, put that call on the calendar. Schedule it. Some conversations lasted minutes, some hours, but each one was a stitch. Then came the rituals. Sunday dinners with neighbors, monthly coffee with a colleague. Over time, these gatherings became nets, invisible until the moment they were needed. When life turned heavy, those voices caught me. When joy appeared, they multiplied it. Relationships, when nurtured, are resilience itself. They're ballast in storms, magnifiers in calm seas. Without them, even success tastes flat. Imagine what a great accomplishment would feel like if you could not share it with anybody else. With them, even hardships can carry a strange lightness when you can lean on one another. Think back to those two kitchens I mentioned in the beginning, the messy takeout box and the table set with care. That contrast is the whole story. It isn't money, it isn't luck. It is basic fundamentals: nourishment, intentional work, and relational investment. Miss one and life tilts, but learn them, practice them however imperfectly, and balance begins to return. So maybe tonight, stand at the stove and stir something simple. Or tomorrow morning, carve out 90 minutes for what matters most in your contribution. Or this weekend, call a friend whose voice you've missed. Small skills practiced daily. They build more than habits. They build better lives. If you like today's message, share it with a friend or give it a like. Thank you for watching. I'm Leon, and I'll see you in the next one.